So now we have a little bit of an intro for our guest tonight, the reason for the season, the reason why we are all here. And so we'll dive right into that. We have with us tonight from Toms River, New Jersey, Mr. Ricky Riccardi, who is the Director of Research Collections for the Louis Armstrong House Museum and author of What a Wonderful World, The Magic of Louis Armstrong's Later Years. He runs the online blog, The Wonderful World of Louis Armstrong, at dippermouth.blogspot.com, and he has given lectures on Armstrong at venues around the world, including the Institute of Jazz Studies, the Satchmo Summerfest, the Bristol International Jazz and Blues Festival, and the Monterey Jazz Festival. He teaches the music of Louis Armstrong graduate course at Queens College, in addition to hosting various listening parties at Jazz at Lincoln Center. And he has recently co-produced Satchmo at Symphony Hall 65th Anniversary, the complete concert for Universal Music in Columbia, and RCA Victor live recordings of Louis Armstrong and the All-Stars for Mosaic Records. He's also the jazz pianist based out of Toms River, New Jersey, and received his master's in jazz history and research from Rutgers. His most recent book on pops, Heart Full of Rhythm, The Big Band Years of Louis Armstrong, is the subject of much of tonight's conversation. So we're going to dive right into this. Mr. Ricky Riccardi, we want to talk about this transition that was occurring in the late 20s, the vice, the opulence, F. Scott Fitzgerald's Lost Generation, the Volstead Act violence, to depression, blues, exoticism, Harlem Renaissance, and just on the verge of a New Deal, in plays Louis Armstrong onto a stage in late 20s New York City. First of all, Ricky Riccardi, welcome to the show. We're excited to have you. I want you to we set a little bit of a flavor there, and I just want you to take it from there and kind of set the stage for where the book begins in this very special time in U.S. history and in Louis Armstrong history.
Sure. Thank you, Scott. Thanks, everybody. It's just having a ball being here. This is a question that I can go on for a few hours about. I could write a book about the answer to this question.
Right?
I'll try to give you the short version. The book begins at the start of 1929, so it's right before Wall Street lays the egg. And Louis Armstrong is worshipped by musicians and by the cognoscenti in Chicago, but not really by anybody else. He's still kind of an unknown musician. All those records that we genuflect towards today, the Hot Fives and Hot Sevens, those were race records, as they called them back then, aimed at the African American communities. They were moderately popular, but they were pretty much as far from pop music as you can get. But that was changing in 1928, especially with the release of West End Blues. All of a sudden, Armstrong's records were bringing in bigger sales. But he was still recording with that New Orleans group with the trumpet, trombone, clarinet, and banjo and piano. And so OK Records, one of their the heads over there was Tommy Rockwell. And Rockwell was like, nah, this sound is never going to do it. This is already an old-fashioned sound. But Louis Armstrong has something different. He won't leave Chicago. He won't stop being a sideman. If I could only get him to New York and get him to record some pop tunes, then I think he'll make a splash. And so Armstrong at first was not interested, but where the book begins, Rockwell gets Armstrong to come to New York for 2 days in March 1929. And it's got all the makings of a movie because he's got all of his mentors there. King Oliver, who's like a father figure to him, is in the audience with tears in his eyes. Fletcher Henderson, who gave him his first job in New York, is the master of ceremonies. Louis sits in with the band of Louis Russell, who he had played with in New Orleans. A lot of New Orleans musicians in that band, and he just
very important for him much later on, right, in this time period taken up by the book.
Yes, Russell becomes his music director in 1935, and they were lifelong friends. And Louis Russell's daughter, Catherine Russell, is a fantastic singer, and I urge everybody to check her out. And she's like the keeper of the flame. She's the greatest. So Armstrong does 2 nights at the Savoy Ballroom, breaks it up. The musicians in Harlem, I never heard anything quite like them. But then he goes in the recording studio and he records "I Can't Give You Anything But Love." And the band plays it in the most pedestrian, you could say, Guy Lombardo fashion. The saxophone's just playing the reeds over and over and over again. Louis does what Louis does. He changes the rhythm, he changes the melody, he scats, he improvises with the horn, with his voice, transforms it into something new. Rockwell releases it on the pop series instead of the Rick series, and just like that, Armstrong is a burgeoning pop star. And he comes back to New York in the summer of '29. He doubles in Harlem and on Broadway. With the Broadway audience, he knocks them dead every night with Ain't Misbehaving. Gets a brand new audience, most white theater going audience. They've never seen or heard anything like it. And that's it. The end of the year comes, 1929. Wall Street lays the egg. The Great Depression starts, and it's like the beginning of Louis Armstrong's stardom. The Depression never really affects him. By 1931, he's the biggest selling record artist in the industry, and he never looks back for the next 40 years of his career.